Hi, this is Craig Stocks, and this is my photo critique of the day. Today's photo was provided by Fred Monger. So Fred, thank you so much for providing the image. You can't do this without the images being submitted. This appears to show, I'm guessing it's a sunset, and I'm not sure if this is Banner Marsh or if it's even local to Central Illinois, but we've got a wonderful sunset going on here, which I'm a big fan of. Sunrise and sunset is a great time of day for landscape photos. It gives us that color contrast, which can be so important in images. And here we have the color contrast between the yellows and reds of the setting sun contrasted against the blues and even kind of some purples going on over on the left-hand side of the image. And that warm, cool color combination is something that that kind of attracts humans in general. Part of the theory is that that's reminiscent of seeing a fire, kind of a campfire at dusk as you're coming back from the hunt, or some primal urge that causes us to be drawn to that warm, cool color combination. And certainly this image has that going for it. We've got some interesting structure in the clouds here. I like the way we have a little bit heavier cloud cover on the left side of the image, and that opens up into these wonderful clouds on the right-hand side that have some motion leading from left to right. So I like that sense of motion that we're getting from the clouds. I also like the layers of interest in the way Fred has included the grasses in the foreground, so that we have a foreground element, a middle ground element with the water and the shoreline, and then the background of the sky. So I think it would be a far less interesting image if we didn't have the grasses in the foreground. As you've probably heard me comment before, I always look at the horizon to see if it's level. And even though there appears to be a curve here, that really I think is just the shape of the shoreline. And if you zoom in and look at details, here we've got some smokestacks on the horizon. The verticals in the center of the frame are vertical, as they should be if everything is level. So it's a good job leveling everything. I'm not sure if this is cropped from a single frame or if this is a panorama, but either way he's done a good job framing it and keeping everything level. Just thinking about the image overall and offering some thoughts, as I look at the color of it, it appears to be maybe a little bit too blue, and the sunset images especially, there's not necessarily an absolute right way to do it, because the color of the light is very warm and very yellow. If we neutralize the color and take away the yellow to get a more neutral color appearance, and sometimes that's the way our eyes perceive it, we lose the impact of having sunset. But we can also go the other way and add a little bit more yellow, and that punches up the sunset colors themselves and sometimes reins in the sky a little bit so it's not quite so deep blue. Now, because we're adding yellow, and yellow tends to be a bright color, if we add yellow, generally we'll have to darken the image a little bit, and here we might even pull down the highlights to maintain the detail and contrast in these kind of filmy clouds up in the sky. Some other details I would look at, I always like to look around the edges of the frame. Even if nothing just jumps out at me and grabs my attention, I kind of do what's called a border patrol and look around the edges of the frame. One of the things I see here is a line. I don't know if this is a piece of a fence or what's creating this line over here, but you might consider cloning that out, or perhaps even cropping it out. The other thing that distracts my attention are the two bright clouds up here along the top edge of the frame. And just as a quick illustration, if I just grab the spot healing tool in Lightroom and just real quickly go over these areas. Now, this, you obviously couldn't just do it this easily in Lightroom, but this gives you the idea that once you take those away, it really changes the focus, and I think it has a big impact in where your eye is drawn to. That was before and after. So, to me, that makes quite a difference. The other thing you might consider, that because there's not a lot of cloud action over here, and the sun actually is just a little bit right of center, and this dividing line is just about center or maybe a little left of center, you could consider an alternate crop on this image of just cropping out a lot of that on the left-hand side and maybe even crop out this line on the right-hand side. Now that does change the image. It's no longer a panorama, so that might not suit the vision that you're after. But what I do like about looking at it this way is it brings the sun and the hot spot and the focus over to the left-hand side, and now we have all of this motion going in one direction. The clouds are kind of filling the sky with some movement, and we also have the corresponding movement in the grasses in the foreground that kind of echo that same direction of motion, and I like that in the image. But again, that may be quite a bit different from what your original view was, and there's really nothing wrong with it as a horizontal panorama, just a different way of looking at the same subject. The other thing I would mention, and not necessarily to this image in general, but it looks like you took this image just a little bit before sunset or as the sun was setting, and we have a lot of real high clouds, and a lot of times when you're out at sunset or before sunrise, some of the best light actually occurs before sunrise or after sunset, as much as half hour, almost even to an hour, depending on your latitude, after sunset. And that's when these high clouds will sometimes light up in kind of almost like a second sunset. That usually happens during civil twilight, and sometimes you can look the other direction. So if you look to the east at sunset and look at what the clouds are doing behind you, if those clouds are showing the kind of pink and red colors behind you, you can just stand there and wait and watch those colors move over the top of you, and eventually after the sun sets, those real brilliant, sometimes cotton candy colors will appear on the horizon and can give you a beautiful colors and a beautiful sunset image also. Not saying that was right or wrong, but just in general, if you're there at sunset, don't pack up and leave just as soon as the sun drops below the horizon, because the best may be yet to come. But overall, I like this image. I like the layers, the foreground, middle ground, background. I like the color contrast of yellows against blues, and a little bit of almost purplish color over in the left side of the image. So good job with that, Fred, and thank you so much for sharing your image with us. And as always, everybody, have a great day.